at that front page there before it disappears, what you see in it, it's kind of hard to see there before it disappears, but you'll see it has the 6 different areas that we'll touch on later on and how we should build the player. So what we're going to go through today is what the under-17 player should look like and how we should coach the under-17 player, okay? Damien's going to be popping in and out throughout this, giving us a little bit of advice on how he does the under-17, or what he does with the under-20 players, what he sees that works with them, okay? And then that stuff we hopefully we can then put into our own coaching when we're back out in the field, okay? Just before we do start, this is being recorded tonight, just so anyone that misses it or anyone wants to watch it back afterwards can have it there. We can have it available to you. If anyone has any questions at any time, just either if you want to open your mics, feel free, or if you want to just put a question to chat, feel free. Damien has said that he's happy to answer all questions, so very grateful for that. So if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to ask throughout, okay? So again, TURAS is informing coaches to deliver what is needed and when it's needed, okay? What we're hoping to get out of today's workshop is to understand the GEA player pathway, okay? We'll touch on that as we go. The TPP model, the total playing performance model, which is our technical, tactical, decision making. It's all out of them aspects of the player, okay? Again, we'll go on to it. And usually in these workshops we have a practical session, but due to the circumstances we're quite lucky that Damien's going to come in and talk about how he delivers these principles in his coaching, okay? So I think you're getting a good end of a deal here tonight. Instead of getting the practical session, Damien's going to talk you through how he used the principles and how we can then implement them ourselves. So the first little thing I'm going to get you to do is just in the little chat box there, write down when or what your first memory of GEA is, okay? And put what age it is beside it. So for example, my first memory of GEA, I think, was 5 years of age, going to watch Westmeath under-21s with my granddad. So that was my first one. So what I want you to do is just put into the little chat box what your first GEA memory is, how old you are, or how old you were, and what that memory is, okay? So for example, if we just go in, Tommy, would you mind just throwing in a little example there, Tommy, if you don't mind? Bernie, would you mind calling them out as to come in if you don't mind?
Yeah, 100%. So we have Kalukin winning the 81 Junior Championship, 7 from Johnny. Under 6s in Castlepotter hurling. I have down playing coming in Munskull. Shane is a Mead winning the All Ireland in 87. Meeting the first coach at under 8.
Brilliant.
Playing coming to Munskull from David as well. Vinny just winning coming to Munskull a long time ago. Looking at Kerry and awfully in All Ireland 82. And Shane on again 88. Dublin against Kerry in the 70s.
Brilliant. So I think, is that most of them through there now, Bernie?
Pretty much kind of all kind of going along that under 10 Street League and going to 1980 All Ireland. So yeah, kind of in around that kind of age.
Brilliant. So I suppose if we were to ask our players, probably our minor players now, under 17 players now, their first experiences are probably going to be a bit younger, because when we think about it, most kids now by 8 years of age have played in Croke Park. Even in some cases it's 5 and 6 years of age. So as we can all imagine, our first memory GEA, that's probably going to be most of our kids, our players' first memory GEA is going to be playing in Croke Park at probably 5 or 6 years of age. So we'll go back to this later on, this little exercise later on. So the stages of the player pathway, or the TURAS player pathway that the GA wrote out, is the first stage is the child play to learn. So all of us have kind of gone through this stage now, okay? In this stage, we're looking at nursery, early go games, and late go games. So the experiences the kids are going to have is going to have the cool camps, kind of what we said already, our Kona Bun School, our blitz days, our go games fixtures, and then the club coaching. Now we move on to the next phase, which is the learn to compete phase. It's probably the hardest phase of all the coaching, Okay, when you think about this phase, it's the first real time that players are going to face rejection. Okay, you could think of the really good club player who comes from a small club. He's the best player in the club. He goes into secondary school. He might go into CBS there. There's 500 boys, 120 of them in first year, and he might make the school team. So for that boy there, that's the first time he might face rejection in sport. Okay, then how are we going to coach that player? Because we don't want to lose him for a club, but all of a sudden now he's starting to get a doubt in his head. Okay, why am I not? He's not getting the same enjoyment out of it. Why am I not making the school team when he's the best player in the club, for example? Okay, and even during this phase, this is probably going to be this is the biggest phase for dropout as we see. Okay, so what do we have going on in this phase? So in terms of GAA, we have county talent academies. We have our super game centres, which is a new recent enough initiative. We have second level schools competitions. We have our county games programs and our club coaching. Okay. Now again, at this phase, we also have a lot of our players are involved in a lot of teams. Okay, so the coaching is a lot different. So if we think about a dual player, for example, in this case, they could be playing or having 10 training sessions a week or 10 interactions a week. When you think of school, when you think of club, and when you put in that's hurling and football. Okay, so again, at this phase, we have to be careful of the players' development as well. And then we go on to our last phase, which is the phase we're going to be going into, or our players are going to be going into. So the inter-county squads, what opportunities have they got at this phase, recreational games, third level GAA, county games programs, and club coaching. Okay, so we're in the late teenager phase, the youth learn to compete phase. Okay, so the challenges we have at this phase are a lot different than what we have with the child play to learn and the adult to compete to win. Okay, again, we might have some questions around these later on, or if we have, just feel free to come in on them. So what we're hoping from the player pathway is that coaches have a clear understanding of where a player is and where they're heading. Okay, so what we're hoping for is, if we see here the under 10 player, we should know now, okay, right, the under 10 player we have now in, say, Mullingar Shamrocks, for example, we should know what he's done for the last 4 years in terms of what skills he should have mastered by 11. And then we know at 12, 13, okay, right, this is where he's going. So when we get to 17 years of age, we should know what the player, we should have a fair idea what the player's perfected, okay? And we're focusing then on what we need to do at the under 17 level to perfect this player for when he's going on to senior level or 18 plus level in this case. Okay, so we're hoping from the player pathway that it gives us a clear understanding of where we're going. It's a map, okay? We're ticking off the boxes as we come. Can a player hand pass with both hands, for example? Okay, grant. If he hasn't, do we need to spend a bit more work on that to get that up? Because that's going to be a key thing for this phase. Okay, hope that makes sense for everyone. So, again, the player pathway is a guide for player development, but remember, players develop at different rates, and we must be aware of each player's journey. So again, there might be a player who's on the in our case, under 17 pathway or stage, but he might still only be on the under 14 or 15 development phase. So then for us as coaches, the challenge is how are we going to coach that player? Okay, are we just going to plow ahead and leave him behind, or are we going to be able to nurture our sessions that we can actually help that player grow and catch up? Okay, so again, there's challenges involved in that. Again, we'll discuss them as we go through this. So focus on the journey, not short-term success. Okay, again, it's about getting that player through to the senior age group. Okay, as much as we'd all love to win championships the whole way up, we know the bigger picture is making sure we get these players to the senior age of our club, senior grade of our club. So the TPP model, I think Damien's going to pop in at some stage of this as well. So what the GAA total play and performance model is, it aligns technical skills, okay, team play skills, tactical prowess and decision making, physical, psychological, and participant feedback. So we'll go on to it in a second here when we're building the player, but what we're looking for is what technical skills are important at 17 years of age. Okay, what should a player be doing team play wise? Should he be learning to create space for other players? Okay, tactical prowess. We usually just get rid of tactical prowess name and call decision making. Okay, so decision making wise, what should an under 17 player be doing? Okay, does he understand that sometimes he's not going to always receive the ball to create that space? or sorry, sometimes he's not always going to receive the ball, but by making that run, he's creating space for his teammate to get the ball in a better position. Physical wise, what advancements should players be working on this phase? Okay, what should we be doing with our players physically at under 17 level? Psychological wise, okay, so what demands are we putting on the players psychological wise during this phase? Participant feedback. What are we doing participant feedback wise at this stage? Okay, are we going to, what type of question are we going to use? Is a question going to be open-ended? Are we looking for questions so players start questioning themselves? Okay, so they start thinking about the game, become better thinkers of what they're doing when they get the ball. Okay, does that make sense for everyone? Again, that's the 6 main areas of the TPP performance model. So what we want you to do at this stage, if that's all right, is we want you to write down, just first of all, what technical proficiency or what skills should a player be technically proficient at under 17 level, in your opinion? So if you don't mind, what we'll get you to do is, will you write them into the chat there? What skills should a player be technically proficient at 17, or what skills should be focusing at technically proficient wise? Okay, we know they'll probably have mastered, say, the punt kick, for example. They'll have mastered punt kick, they'll have mastered the hand pass. Okay, so what should we focus on at 17 years of age? So we'll start off with technical proficiency. Bernie, again, will you mind just checking them as they come in?
Yeah, 100%.
Is there anything anyone wants to add at this stage? Bernie, Damien, Tommy, feel free to come in on it.
So comfortable using both feet.
Brilliant.
Yeah, kicking with both feet. Shooting proficiently with both feet. Tackling as well.
Brilliant.
Catch, kick, solo, hand pass, the basics like as well. So reading the play and getting into position and passing off both sides. Just take one or two more, guys, if anyone's anything else to add. Yeah, communicating with other players. Strong on the ball and in possession. And then close man marking as well.
Perfect. Damien, do you want to come in on technical proficiency there? What you'd see at under 20 levels in terms of areas that players should be focusing on at under 17 level, or the gaps?
Yeah, it's something, I suppose it's something we would have seen over the last, this is our third year doing it now. And the first day I did, when Thomas asked me to come on here, was I asked Tom and Dave and Peter for their thoughts as well. And funny if we all kind of would have come up with the same things, and some of the things that are put into the message there would be areas that we see would need huge improvement, like ability off both feet would be certainly missing in a lot of players, even at under 20 level. And it's a difference to see. I suppose someone can stand out in the pitch and kick off his left, off his right, but can he do it under pressure? Can he do it with 5 minutes to go? So again, it's about coaching. I know we'll talk about this later on, Thomas, about coaching under pressure. Again, if you go back to under 17, they probably should just have the mechanics of it. Maybe have a bit of pressure on them. Similarly, in off their left hand, right hand, you'd be amazed the amount of guys at under 20 county level can't get themselves out of trouble because they can't pass off their weaker hand. And they're the most basic of skills, and we all think they should be able to do it. But what way are we coaching it? Are we coaching it that they're just doing it in warm-up drills, or are we actually concentrating on it under pressure? And again, it's I suppose ways we would have worked on it would be, we might have the resources to do it through video analysis and stuff like that, but individualize it then back to the player. So what's his thoughts? He might think he's good off his weaker foot, but in reality, when the pressure's on, he'll just turn back to his stronger foot. I suppose from the technical point of view, Thomas, they'd be the the two main areas that we would have seen. Again, maybe a first touch under pressure. So corner forward coming out, wanting to win the ball, fine. But again, when there's a corner back breathing down his neck, the ball is fumbled, you lose that advantage you're after having. So a lot of the stuff we would have seen, players will be able to do it, but when the pressure's on, you know, to go back to maybe just back to the stronger side.
I get you. No, brilliant. Thanks for that, Damien. Again, what we'll do is we'll move on to the tactical prowess and decision making. So again, what should we be doing in terms of tactical prowess and decision making for players at that age?
Again, guys, so if we can get into the chat box there, we'll share our thoughts. When is the score on or not on? Creating space. Making the run or not. Positional sense. Positioning, should I stay or go? The right time to offload. The ability to weigh up match situations and act correctly. Head up and look for options before taking a play. Know which is the better pass to make and not necessarily forward. I think it's good in that, like, that we have both sides of the player as well. That it's not just your decision making on the ball. So we have a couple coming in that are focusing on, you know, decision making without the ball as well, which is hugely important.
Brilliant. So even on this one, I think Damien kind of touched on it already there. It's even like some of your observational stuff. So again, watching a certain scenario or setting up a certain scenario for players. Again, I know Damien touched on video analysis. You could set up a certain scenario of, right, we're playing against team this week to have turn the ball. When the corner forward gets the ball in this situation, what are we going to do with that? Or what decision are we going to do when your back's to goal, you've got the ball in between the line? What are we looking for here? Okay, so probably a lot of that. Again, Damien, Zane, do you want to come in on that one, tactical press and decision making? Feel free.
Yeah, I suppose again, it's one of the main ones would be when to shoot, when not to shoot. I suppose a lot of guys would have the habit of just pulling the trigger when they're within 30 yards. The shot might necessarily be on. You can coach that into it as well by putting conditions in games. You know, playing backs and forwards, maybe putting a shot clock on it that you have to shoot within. You have to score within 10 seconds. So you're putting guys under pressure that to get the ball, they might think they have to shoot. But again, stop it after that. Go back and say, okay, there was pressure to shoot, but you still had maybe another 5 or 6 seconds to get the shot off. Was there a better option rather than just turning and pulling the trigger? There was, you know, Joe Bloggs was out wide in the left. It was better position. So stopping it during training and you know, actually pointing it out there and then, rather than letting it go and maybe calling it up, you know, a night or two after.
Brilliant. Thanks a million for that, Damien. Again, guys, team play. We might just throw this one out there again. So in terms of our team play, what we're focusing on again. So I suppose with our team play, it's again challenging players to adapt to a number of different playing styles throughout the season. Okay. So in terms of our playing style, we're trying to develop our players that they're not just going to learn to play one way. Okay. Again, within that team play, it could be getting players to learn to play different positions, for example. Okay, that they're not just, again, if we use the wing forward, for example, he might end up in cornerback one game. So have they got that skills to be able to do that? Okay, so again, when we're building the player, that's one side to look of it. Again, our physical fitness. So this one's usually it gets people talking and asking questions about. So with what we'll ask is, what do we think in terms of physical fitness we should work on under 17 level? We'll put it into the chat again.
Yeah, we have our core strength, we have our speed.
Brilliant.
Our stamina.
Straight away, the first two, from talking to Kieran earlier on, the first two are the two that he wanted us to stress about tonight. About when we're doing the speed work, that it's hugely important we're giving full recovery to the players. So what we'll find is the player will go and do a sprint, could be a 40-meter sprint or 20-meter sprint, whatever it is, and they'll jog back. What Kieran was saying today is when we're doing our speed work, it has to be full recovery, okay? So for example, if they're doing a speed full recovery, should be 1 minute and 30 seconds in between each rep, and it shouldn't be done at the end of the session. It should be done when the players are nice and fresh. Okay, so after your warm-up. I think, Bernie, you said core strength. Was that one they asked?
Yeah, it was core strength, mobility, injury prevention, jumping and landing techniques, agility and change of direction, and then dynamic speed over short distances as well.
Brilliant. Again, Kieran said to emphasize the GA15. So if we're doing the GA15 at training and we're giving it for the players to do at home, that's going to increase their training age, okay? We want players to have 2 or 3 years experience or training age before we get them doing resistance work. Okay, so if we're getting to do that GA15 at home, okay, then getting to do as part of the warm-up, it's covering the 3 main exercises we're looking for, which is the squat, the hinge, and the lunge at that age group, okay? Within the GA15, they're all developed from that. So again, they're the 3 big exercises we're looking for, and they're done within that GA15. Again, we can send out the resource for the GA15 later on. We can put it into the chat. Again, the next ones are psychological focus. So again, what we'll do is we might throw it into the chat again, or if anyone wants to discuss it through the microphone, feel free. So as coaches, what are we looking for players psychologically or psychological wise from under 17 players?
That they're happy at training, Vinny, yeah.
Brilliant. Even from a coach's perspective, I suppose what we're trying to get is players who are coachable. So they have a coachability about them, okay? That they recognize that the 5 minutes spent at home is 5 minutes of practice, okay? That they see the improvements themselves, okay? Damien, is there anything you want to come in on there, the coachability of players or anything like that?
Sorry, the mic was off. I suppose it's what we would be doing is constantly trying to set good standards at training, and a lot of that does come from the top down. You know, so if you have your discipline right, and by discipline I mean, you know, if it's a 7:30 training session, it starts at 7:30. If you know the stuff like that the coaches are there half an hour beforehand, so players can arrive, they can see that this is actually a professional setup. A positive attitude at training at all times. There could be times that we all get, I suppose, a bit annoyed, but you're the one that they're looking to for leadership. So at all times, there has to be a positive attitude at training, you know, winning mentality that you're trying to feed in no matter what. Again, I know it's under 17, you mightn't be as up, say at under 20 level is I suppose it is all about winning really, but at under 17, that's what young lads are thinking as well. So it's not pressure to win, but it's just a winning mentality that this is how winners behave. You know, so if you do want to be part of something successful, you have to put the work in, and it starts, you know, not just when you throw a ball in at a game during training. It starts half an hour beforehand.
Brilliant.
Yeah, there's just a couple more there, kind of, Thomas. Then, you know, Alan touched on it there. Damien said, you know, that there's ability to think a few steps ahead and have good attitude, belief, that you're confident, cool under pressure, Then it's important to stress that that the now is not forever and that development is still in progress. So that's like really important. Not dropping their heads when it goes wrong and accepting that they're still learning. Okay, so really under 17s, like 16, 17-year-olds need to make sure that that is drilled into them.
Yeah, just talking about one thing. I suppose like it's a culture of constant improvement. Really, is what you want to. The winning mentality is obviously very important, but a focus on improving at all times. So if you have bad days, it doesn't matter. Pick the positive out of it, and concentrate on them.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and really at that age, you can really kind of hone in on the kind of the individual practice as well. That's a lot of it is up to them, the different improvements they can make through individual practice.
Brilliant. The last one is participant feedback. So I suppose we'll fly through this a little bit because then we're going to move on to the principles of it. But again, getting players to question what they did on the ball. Okay. So again, Damien was touching this earlier on, but getting players to understand why they did a certain thing on the ball. We always go, Jesus, why did you do that? But let's understand, or we try and find out why they did it. Get them to search for the answer themselves within themselves. Okay. And even again, we can highlight good bits of play and get them to understand why that was good bit of play. Okay, they might be doing things that is good that they're not understanding is good. Okay, so in that case, it's really important that the question we're asking is a deeper thought-provoking type of question. Okay, we're not just scratching the surface now. We're trying to get really in there and what the player's thinking, so they're learning and they're developing that side of their game as well. Again, if anyone wants to come in on that, feel free.
Yeah, just something on that, I suppose, Thomas. It's getting the balance right as well between turning a session into a talking shop and getting your point across. So you need to be very careful that it's not a stop-start session as well, and that you're questioning every little thing. Maybe identify one thing in a session that you need done, and work on that for that session. So just avoids the stop-start sessions that you get at times. Just takes the momentum out of it.
Would you do much of that stuff one-on-one with players, Damien, during a session?
We would, but I like to let a session flow, to be honest. We would certainly. So I suppose, again, we'd have the resources in place. So if Tom or David or Peter was taking a session, I'd be able to take someone aside, or one of the lads be able to take someone aside, have a quick word. And it's probably at club level as well, if the resources are there. Like, don't be afraid to pull a guy to one side and let the session continue. Again, you should be able to deliver your message in 30, 40 seconds. It doesn't have to turn into a big talking shop, but certainly if you get your point across what you want, just be very clear about what you want as well, because with young lads, you might think they understand you, but it's actually making sure that they do understand you. And the best way to find out if they do or not is ask them, straight out, do you know what I'm talking about? What's your thoughts on what I'm saying?
Brilliant. And even I suppose what Damien's saying there, when you're doing it during training session, I suppose it's an environment where players are comfortable as well when they're on the pitch. I know in the past where we would have given a load of feedback in dressing rooms where players just aren't as comfortable. It kind of feels like a classroom-based environment. Whereas when players are on the pitch, it's where they want to be. It's a comfortable place for them to get that information on board. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share what this under 17 player looks like, and we can discuss it. So just give me 2 seconds. Share.
I suppose just on that, when you're sharing, Thomas, I suppose it's making sure that you provide, the right opportunity for problem solving, and that the players have a chance then to talk as well. That we're giving them that opportunity and at the right time. Like Damien said, it doesn't have to turn into a massive big talk or whatever. Like, you can do that when we call them in for water. We can do it when we're maybe walking over to another drill or whatever. So it's kind of making sure that you get the right time to do it as well.
Can you see that there, Bernie, on the screen? The under 16 player. Perfect. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll leave this up for a second. If there's any questions on this, feel free to ask them at any point. What we'll be doing afterwards is we'll be sending this out. So this is the under 17 player pathway sheet as such. So we have here, you can see there's a bit on the coach, the environment, the game, and the player. And then in the middle, we have the 6 areas we can focus on. So our technical, our tactical, our team play, our physical fitness, participant feedback, and our psychological focus. Okay. So if we look at the environment, we're looking to create a coach to player ratio of 1 to 10. Okay, so we have, again, ideal world, that's what we're looking for. Okay, we're looking for at least 1 buff, 2 players. have awareness of game schedules of other teams your players may be representing. So again, we kind of touched on that area that the same player could be playing for the school, he could be playing for the club, he could be playing football and hurling as well. So enjoyment and fun for players still a key consideration when planning sessions. So we're still trying to have that fun element. Okay. Again, we'll see here the game players beginning to become accustomed to specific positions must still be challenged in playing a variety of positions. Aim to provide at least 16 games in your season. And again, we all know it's a side-fight football. So again, I'll send this out afterwards. Is anyone any question on this? Feel free to hop in here now. If there's something you think that might be missing, or you're going, Jesus, should that be in there? Feel free to ask away or the question on it and see. We can see what everyone else's thoughts are on it. If anyone has any question, feel free to open up the mics if you want. We're all happy enough on that.
Yeah, there's nothing coming in the chat anyway, Thomas.
Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll send that out afterwards anyway. And if you do have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm just going to open this back up. So 5 principles of TURAS. So as we said, TURAS means journey earlier on. And again, the TURAS stands for the 5 principles that we should be employing as coaches. Now I know Damien's going to go into these a bit more detail. I'll just fly through them here. But the first thing is that everything's testing and challenging. So all players should be challenged to improve at their level. Okay. So again, that we're challenging, as we said, that player who might be at that under 15 stage, but we're also challenging that under 17, the players at that under 17 level, and maybe just above that level. Okay. Understand that the players at center of the game and provide individualized development. So again, I know Damien's going to touch on this in a few minutes, but again, we're creating a player-centered environment. We're trying to grow the player and the human, not just focusing on winning games. That what we coach resembles the game. So we've game-based activities. Now I know we've loaded game-based activities out there. I know we've had a couple of workshops on them so far already. So there is a load of resources out there on how to make stuff resemble the game. Okay. Again, there's still a place for our drills when we say game-based. There's still a place for our drills, especially when we go back in a couple of weeks' time. For the first couple of weeks, it is going to be drill-based. Okay, so we can adhere to social distancing. But in terms of what we're doing is that what we're coaching looks or is based on what the game looks like. Okay. Again, the A stands for all players involved all the time. So what we're saying here, if we're doing an activity, just everyone's getting low touches of the ball. Okay, we're not going back and having lines of 7 and 8 and players getting a touch every 60 to 90 seconds. Okay, we're looking for players to get touches the whole time, that they can make low decisions on the ball. And the last principle is that it should be enjoyable, developmentally appropriate, and a holistic GA experience. So what we're saying is it should be fun. Okay, players shouldn't feel like it's a chore to come down to the pitch. Okay, that should be enjoyable for them to come down to the pitch. Damien, do you want to come in any of these principles on how you used them yourself at coaching?
Yeah, I suppose testing and challenging players, certainly at under 20 level again, it's something we'll be doing all the time. So one of the best ways to do it is maybe just set individual targets for players. So we do it as a team, obviously. So what we would work off, we've someone there that takes, it's a very simple stat sheet, but he'd take like kickouts, balls, turnovers lost, turnovers won, and shooting percentages. But you could also individualize that then after a game, or even during the training session. So especially if you have a stronger player, what you'll find obviously at club level, at minor level, you may have someone that's playing county minor or a good level of school football coming back, who could be quite strong in a training session and maybe dominating a team. So set him different challenges during the game about bringing players into it. If you're playing a game, he can only kick off his weaker foot, little things like that. But make sure you tell him beforehand. Call him to one side, have a chat with him, because you don't want a situation where you think that he's been picked on during the training session either. So call him to one side, say, and let him know what you're going to do, that it's for the betterment, his betterment, but also for the betterment of the team. And the player, again, I suppose, as part of that, is at the centre of the whole thing. It's the coach is enjoyable, but it's all about developing the players. And in one way, a lot of you guys would be with those players maybe since they're under 6, under 7. So it's an advantage in one way that you know them the whole way along. But another way, then you may have pigeonholed them into into certain areas. You may have thoughts on them. So always keep an open mind. Keep a very open mind on playing lads in different positions, trying out different things. Make it enjoyable for them. But again, constantly communicating that with the player. I suppose our games, then we would certainly, during our training sessions, we'd always try and play a game during it. I know you depend on numbers as well. You may not have the numbers, but you can reduce pitch sizes. You can have different conditions within games. Whatever you're trying to achieve in a game as well. You'd often hear guys going out and giving up about players not being able to shoot, and then you ask them, do you practice your shooting and training? They don't. So again, it's whatever you want to happen in the game should be what you're practicing at training, should be what you're preaching to the players, should be what you're communicating to them all the time, and how you want to improve it. And in keeping all the players involved, that's vital. Certainly at under 7, you get away with a bit more as they go along because lads they don't mind taking a break during training. But it's at that age you want all those players moving as much as you can. So if you're playing condition games, 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, give them a bit of recovery, that sort of thing. But you're keeping them involved all the time. Again, by putting conditions on games, you're ensuring that everyone is involved in it. It's that's vitally important that everyone is brought along together. At club level, we would see it, I suppose, again at county under 20 level. You have the advantage of a lot of guys will be comfortable on the ball and stuff as well. But you still want them making decisions all the time. You want them under pressure to improve all the time. And that's the environment that you're creating. That it's every time to come down that you want them to improve, whatever section it is you're dealing with. And again, I suppose the last part of it's the enjoyable part. That's why we're all involved. If it's not enjoyable, you're going to see numbers dropping off. And the way to make it as enjoyable is that you're the first face that they see when they come in. So make sure that you greet everyone when they come in, and don't accept bad behaviour during training. It's something that we would have a zero tolerance on, as regards disrespect for other players or disrespect for coaches. We would have had instances over the last few years where players may have been disrespectful, and that's it. They're dealt with there and then. It's not acceptable at all, because that makes it a more enjoyable. You want to create an atmosphere where everyone feels comfortable to both give their ideas, to make mistakes, to try new things.
Brilliant. I suppose that's probably come back to now even creating a bit of a culture at that age group.
Yeah, it is. That comes from the coaches. We're all very quick, I suppose, to. I wouldn't say to blame players, but like that's 15, 16, 17 age group. It can be difficult to deal with. There's no point in saying they're not. But make your training as interesting as possible. Make it have an atmosphere where it's enjoyable to come down to, where they actually look forward to come down to. And if you have good rules and if you have good discipline around things, people actually enjoy that. Young people like to know as well that there are boundaries, and that certainly come back to discipline as regards time and respect for other people on the pitch. Those things would be non-negotiable with me, and certainly the under 21 coaches. They're the rules, and you live by those rules.
Brilliant. And what was great was you when you mentioned the testing and challenging there, you're doing it in a player-centered way as well. That you're taking the player side, like he's involved in the conversation. It's not when you're testing and challenging the player, you're not just doing without communicating to him. You're giving him that nearly voice for himself, like.
Well, we had an example this year in our league. We were in with Monaghan, Cavan, and Armagh. So it would have been the first time we would have played Northern teams. We played Monaghan in the first game, and it was a completely different style of football than we would have come up with before. There was 50 men behind the ball. We just couldn't deal with it, couldn't do anything. So the Tuesday night of training, we printed out 4 or 5 football pitches. We marked up on the pitch where the Monaghan players were set up defensively, and we broke the players up into groups of 3 and 4. And I said, right, lads, there's the Monaghan setup from Saturday. We're playing Armagh the following game. If that happens again, how are we going to break it down? And then you bring one. We had a board. We brought one up from each group just to give one idea. So it didn't have a couple of loads, just one idea. And at the end of it, said, right, that's your ideas. We coached that. We knew more or less what we were guiding them along as well, how we wanted it to go. We coached that, and then we went out on the following Saturday and played Armagh or Cavan in the league. But it was. You made it sound like it was their idea, So it was tested them to come up with the answers rather than just telling them the answers.
Yes, exactly. That was the player-centered approach by you guys. Instead of just kind of giving it to them, letting them give them a chance to nearly give them a chance to see or give them a chance to say what they thought themselves, which is
you'd be surprised what you learn off lads as well.
It's brilliant. Like, do you mind if we touch on, Damien, here the player profile and template you sent on?
Oh yeah.
Just on for the player-centered approach bit. So this is something that Damien sent me on earlier. So Damien, do you want to talk us through it there yourself?
Yeah, it's not something we actually use with the under 20s. It's something we would have put together. I think it'd be more beneficial for club players. You know, if it was a situation where certainly if you're someone that's followed that age group the whole way up along. So it's the basic skills, right? So you can mark it, and then you get the player to mark it, and then you have a bit at the end on what to need to practice. You know, so again, it's that opening up rather than being told what to do. That, you know, I think you have a weak left foot, you need to practice. You know, he might think he's a great left foot. So if you give him a 5, he gives himself a 10. Okay, there's a bit of a manoeuvring to go. So there you can come up with somewhere that needs to practice, and it's something that can be worked on and said not. This can be done over whether a year, a couple of years, and certainly at club level you'd have access to players for a longer period of time. So it's something that could start at a younger age and maybe follow the player through.
Brilliant. And I suppose it's even there for us as coaches, it gives us a bit of a map as well. Like if we're seeing that, right, 8 of our players are saying that they only feel a 3 out of 10 there, say an example on blocking. Now all of a sudden we see the team averages 3 out of 10. It kind of puts it back a bit on us that now, right, we need to go and spend a bit more time on that, and it gives us a bit of a roadmap, I suppose, for ourselves as coaches to figure out, right, how are we going to improve that?
Yeah, because you might think again, it's having a very open mind towards coaching and towards players, and it might be just something that you might like a certain style of football, okay, and you might concentrate all your training on, say, on running, for example. But then when it comes back, you're talking to the players. If all the players have a problem kicking off their weaker foot, or all the players have a problem in a certain area, you might just have to change your ideas and say, okay, well, this is what the players are telling me. How now can I change my coaching to suit them?
Yeah, exactly. I suppose again, it's giving them a bit of a player-centered approach again as well. A player-centered approach as well. It's kind of getting them used to that as well, and even giving themselves a bit of control over what they think or where they feel they're at. I'm just gonna go back sharing the presentation. Sorry. You see that again? So we'll touch on that in a minute. So at this point, Kai said Damien kindly agreed that if anyone has any questions, to feel free to ask him. So if you do want to turn on mics, please feel free. Again, when I was talking to Damien about this the other day, he was only delighted to be able to, or he was only delighted to help and answer any questions we have. And I suppose we are very lucky in Westmeath at the moment that we've such open coaches to it. How many times have we heard Jack saying for anyone to pick up the phone to him? I know Damien has said that as well, that it's an open book with the lads, that they've no hassle answering any questions people may have. And I suppose the great thing about if we do have that community practices, we're probably all having the same problems, especially at the age group we work with. The man down the road, if we're open with each other, he might be able to share the answers to the question that we're having or the problem we're having at the moment, or to a solution to it as well. So I suppose it's a great trait that we have, a great trait in people that we have in Westmeath at the moment, that we're so open, that the lads are so open to answer any questions we do have. So if anyone does have any questions at this stage, feel free to ask away there. If you want to put in the chat, or if you want to open up mics, please feel free.
Yeah, I suppose the whole community practice, Thomas, is very important, and it's, again, with the 4 of us, the under 20s, we all kind of do different, or have different roles within the coaching side of it, or the management side of it, and you know, it's very important that you won't do all this on your own. No matter if it's in a club, I know the resources, as I said, you mightn't have as many, but you won't do it on your own. You know, so you should always seek help. If someone can only give you an hour a week, can't commit fully, get them involved. You know, if there's players there that are willing to come down and give you a dig out, just get them involved. You know, because none of us, the only thing I do know is that none of us will ever be finished learning. You know, we never will have all the answers. So the important thing is just to keep learning off each other.
Brilliant. If anyone wants to come in there, the mics, feel free to open them up there.
Tommy and Niall O'Brien here. Just a question there for Damien. Damien, I suppose as the under-20 manager, your time would be limited with the team as such. And it's a kind of similar situation now, hopefully, when the restrictions are lifted. So with that in mind, what sort of advice would you give to the coaches here about the next couple of weeks and how they go about getting their sessions organised in the short space of time that we'll have before hopefully we'll have games?
Well, I suppose hopefully you'll probably have an idea of regards games over the next few weeks. So everything really, most guys are supposed to relatively fit at that age, you know. So really be all about ball work, developing the skills. They may have been out practicing a bit on their own, but the actual skill level, I think you'll find will have dropped because a lot of them mightn't have done anything probably since the end of last year because the football mightn't have started, you know, by the time the lockdown came in. So really concentrating, I think, on the skills is important over the next few weeks just to get lads back. And you get them up. You get young lads are great to adapt very quick. You know, you as regards team play and all that, there's not a whole lot of work you can do on team play between now and in space of a couple of weeks. But certainly concentrating on the skill levels of training, you know, skill levels under pressure, I think is an area that everyone can be concentrating on. Because they're gone from a situation where they have to be doing a whole lot. Like there'll be no pressure on them for the last few months. So if you go into a game situation, you want to try and have as much preparation in that in your training sessions.
Brilliant. Bernie, is there any questions there in the chat or anything like that? Or does anyone want to come in on that? On anything there?
Yeah, anyway.
If there's any questions there, everybody wants to turn the mic, feel free. Perfect. What I might do is if anyone has any questions there, you can ask them at the end. So what we'll do is we'll just go back here just before we finish up. Here, we see here there's the GA activity planner. So most of us have probably gone through this already. So most of us have probably seen this already. I know Tommy was saying earlier that in the next couple of weeks they're going to put up a COVID-19 section on this. So if anyone does want or hasn't been on it before, it's galearning.ie. Okay, and you log in there, and the great thing about this is you can save your sample session, save as PDF. But up here there's going to be a new COVID-19 section, which is going to give us activities we can do once we're able to get back in the pitch on June 29th. Activities which include social distancing. Okay, so that's going to be up there next couple of weeks. I think Tommy was saying it should be up there in the next few weeks. What we'll do is I'll just play this video so you can see the coaching. So the sound isn't working. So anyway, we kind of get an idea of what it is anyway. So we'll see here in a minute. If you click on add to coaching session, what it does is it gives us the option to save it a PDF, which is brilliant and handy when it comes to if we're running late for training ourselves. So for example, if I have the session planned out and I know I'm running a few minutes late work, I can send the session on to somebody else. It's probably a bit more beneficial in the younger age groups, but still a good resource for us to have. In terms of what we get you to do here is just from the TPP model that we talked about earlier, so technical, tactical, team play, psychological focus, physical fitness, whereabouts did our memory we wrote in earlier? Which one, the 6, did that come under? So what we'll do is I'll bring you back here to TPP, and I want you to write down what was your first memory, which aspect did it come under? So here. So for example, we'd probably say if we look at the first coach one, and the first coach giving us advice, where would that come under? So if we just put in where your first memory, what it fits under. Again, just put them into the chat, which area it came under.
Technical skills, don't it? Technical skills, team play. Team play and technical. Technical. Technical skills and team play. So I think we're all kind of seeing where it comes in.
Yes, so what we find is, I suppose, most of the time it'll either be a technical skill, again, it'll be probably a coach giving us example or giving us help with certain thing. Okay, so it could be a coach teaching us that when we're kicking the ball, we're dropping the ball with the same hand, same foot. Okay, so it could be something like that, the memory could be. Again, our psychological focus one could be, again, go and see our first game. So Shane's one is probably a psychological focus one there, Mead winning whatever they won back all them years ago. We'll try and forget about that. But again, it's a psychological memory. So again, what we're hoping from TURAS is that we develop our coaches. By developing our coaches, it makes better players, which then increases the chance of retaining players, which when we put all that together, it makes a better club. So again, that's what we're hoping for with our TURAS, and that we hope that we create a player pathway, a player play to stay with the GAA. Bernie, Damien, Tommy, is there anything you want to come in on there before we finish up?
Just I suppose that we make sure all the time that, you know, we're reverting back to our we're reverting back to the TURAS principles all the time. You know, that no matter what kind of section it is that you're doing in the game, if it's condition game, if it's your warm up, whatever it is, that you're making sure that you're reverting back to kind of the principles all the time as much as we can. I mean, I'm certainly from coaching before, you know, you might have been ticking nearly all the boxes, but when you really dig deep and look into it, you can realise that, you know, maybe I was kind of lacking in one area or certain area here. And that's up to us as coaches to make sure that we're ticking all them boxes. You know, if we're not ticking them all, there's going to be some part of the player, as we could see earlier in the wheel, that there's going to be some part of the player that we're letting down all the time. So the player cannot evolve as a whole player unless we have all them 6 principles ticked. And if we make sure we follow the 5 principles here, we will make sure that we tick all principles. And, you know, it's up to us as coaches to make sure that we're handing the player on to the next coach, you know, in the way that we'd certainly like to get them. And if we're all kind of, if we look at the kind of the bus analogy earlier on the presentation, you know, if we make sure that we keep them on the bus and that we keep them, you know, ticking along nicely the whole time and ticking all them boxes, that they'll be a better player as they go up the whole time and a whole rounded player as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resources now available for coaches, which is great, and the TURAS principles are very good. And the one thing I'd say to coaches is be constantly challenging yourself. You know, challenge yourself to improve, challenging yourself. Don't be overcritical. We have all good days and bad days on coaching and in football. But just constantly trying to improve and have a very open mind to suggestions and ideas, whether it's from players, whether it's from fellow coaches, and it'll be far more enjoyable, you know. And don't be afraid to to pick up the phone. If there's someone that you know that may have done something or whatever, pick up the phone and ask him how he did it or what problems. And GA people are only too willing to help each other out. And none of us have all the answers, but we certainly like a good chat about football anyway. We can get us away from the kids for an hour.
Thanks a million. Brilliant. Anyone else want to come in and anything before we finish up there?
Thomas, Niall here again, Niall O'Brien. Just before you do finish up, look, thanks a million for your presentation. A big thanks to Damien, and I see there where a few of the lads, a few of his coaching teams are logged in there tonight. Damien, thanks a million for your input there, and no doubt people will take a lot from it. Also, thanks to everyone else who has tuned in. And look, one thing I would say is we'll hopefully have all this. I will have a section on the website in the not too distant future, totally dedicated to coaching. So you'll be able to get a lot of these resources on our own Westmeath GA website in the not too distant future. So look, thanks again, and I'll give you back there to Thomas.
Again, just going to echo what Niall said there. Thanks a million to Damien tonight for this. It was brilliant to have Damien on to share his insights on how he uses the principles with players. It's great to get that practical experience of how different ideas and how we can implement the TURAS principles instead of just seeing them on paper. Again, to everyone, thanks a million. Damien was saying beforehand, he's no hassle anyone ever pick up the phone or dropping an email. So again, thanks a million for being that open, Damien, and not minding that and letting people being approachable for people to get to answer or bounce questions off. So thanks a million for that, Damien. So what we'll do is we're going to put that up. We're going to put that up online after we record it. Or sorry, we'll share the recording. We'll put up all the resources there as well. Damien's player profile and sheet. We'll stick that into the group there as well, so we have resource there that we can create ourselves. Okay. If anyone doesn't have any questions, we'll finish up now. But if anyone wants, I'll start. We can stay on for 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. But if not, we'll finish up now. Perfect. Don't think anyone has any questions there. Perfect. So I might finish up there now. We'll see you all soon. Hopefully we'll all see each other back out on the pitch very soon. Thanks, man, everyone.